Title: The Mime. Introduction. It started as a harmless act. White face paint, striped clothes, and a silent smile on the corner of a quiet street. People passed by. Some laughed. Some dropped coins and a hat at his feet. But no one really saw him. No one noticed when he started appearing at the same time, every day, always watching, never blinking. No one cared until he followed someone home. That someone was me. Part 1. The Street Performer. I moved to Belgrave for a fresh start, one of those sleepy towns tucked between nowhere and nothing. I'd left the chaos of the city, the noise, the constant press of people, in exchange for still mornings and quiet evenings. I was a writer, or try to be. Belgrave seemed perfect for that. Quiet enough to think, quiet enough to hear yourself. I first saw him 3 days after I arrived. He stood at the edge of the town square, just outside the old post office. His outfit was classic. Black trousers, a striped long-sleeve shirt, white gloves, and that unmistakable white painted face. A single teardrop below one eye, drawn in stark black. His expression never changed, frozen in a soft, amused smile. He didn't speak, of course. He was a mime. He performed invisible tricks for passers-by, trapping himself in imaginary boxes, pulling unseen ropes. The locals mostly ignored him. A few kids giggled. An old woman once tossed a coin in his hat and muttered something I couldn't hear. I watched him from a cafe window. Something about the way he moved unsettled me. Too fluid, too deliberate, like his joints weren't quite connected right. His gestures stretched a second too long. He never looked at the people passing by. He looked over them, around them, as if waiting for someone else. That night, I dreamed of him. In the dream, I was walking through the square. It was late, nearly midnight. The shops were closed, lights out. The town was silent. Then I heard it, the sound of skin dragging against concrete. Slow, sticky. I turned, and he was there, standing under the street lamp, smiling. I tried to walk, but couldn't. My feet were stuck, frozen in place. I opened my mouth to scream, but there was no sound. He moved closer, one gloved hand rising to his lips. He didn't speak. He just mimed a eh. I woke drenched in sweat, heart pounding. Shrugging it off, I convinced myself it was just nerves from a move. I went back to my writing, tried to ignore the chill that settled in my spine every time I passed the square. But the mime was always there, and after the dream, I started noticing things. He was never seen arriving or leaving. One moment the square was empty. The next, he was there. I asked the barista at the cafe about him. She gave me a blank look. "The mime," she said. "I don't think we had a mime in this town. Not since that old troupe in the 80s. Used to be a big festival thing." "No, the one by the post office. Every day around noon." She shook her head slowly. "I haven't seen anyone like that." I pressed further, even pointed him out to the window, but when we looked, he was gone. That night, he was closer in the dream. I was in my house this time, the living room. The lights flickered like an old film reel. Through the darkened window, I saw him standing in the yard. His smile was wider. He placed his palms against the glass and mimed pushing. I watched the pane bulge inward like something pressing from the outside. Then the cracking began, spiderweb lines splintering the glass. I woke gasping, throat raw from an unseen scream. By the end of the week, I was rattled. I avoided the square. I pulled the curtains at night. Still, he came, first in dreams, then more. I started seeing him in reflections, in the screen of my laptop, just behind me, in the mirror, standing at the end of the hall, always still, always smiling. One afternoon, determined to end the madness, I walked the square, camera in hand. If no one else could see him, I'd capture him myself. He was there, as usual, had at his feet. A small crowd gathered, though no one looked directly at him. A couple walked by and laughed as if something funny had happened, but they never acknowledged the mime. I lifted my camera, clicked the shutter. The image loaded on screen. Empty, just the street. No mime. I took another, and another, all empty. Then I made a mistake. I lowered the camera, and stared directly at him. His head tilted slightly, a subtle jerk like a puppet's. The smile widened. His eyes, black, deep, bottomless, locked onto mine. He raised a gloved hand. Slowly, Mime pulling a rope. I felt something tighten around my throat. Not enough to choke, but enough to paralyze me with fear. I staggered back, blinking. He was gone. I didn't leave my house for 2 days after that. I tried rationalizing it. Stress, hallucinations, maybe some kind of elaborate prank. But deep inside, I knew the truth. The Mime wasn't just a man. He was something else. And I'd made eye contact. It was that night everything changed. I woke up at 3:33 a.m. to silence. Not even the sound of wind outside. I reached for my phone. Dead. Power out. Then from downstairs, a creak. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Not heavy like boots. Light. Careful. Like someone trying not to be heard. I slipped out of bed, heart thudding, and crept to the hallway. My breath caught. On the wall at the far end, written in what looked like black paint or ink or something worse, was a single word. Smile. I backed away, but behind me came the click of the bathroom light switch. The bulb buzzed to life. I turned. There he was, in the mirror, standing behind me. But when I whirled around, nothing. Back to the mirror, there again, closer, his gloved hands raised, pressing against the inside of the glass, like he was trapped behind it. Or worse, trying to get through. I ran, out the door, into the cold night. The street was empty. No lights, no people, just a thick, creeping fog rolling over the pavement. At the center of the square, barely visible through the mist, stood the Mime, waiting. He didn't move, just raise a hand and wave slowly, like he knew I'd be back, like he wanted me to come to him. I didn't. I turned and ran, heart pounding, lungs burning. I didn't stop until I was back inside, every door locked, every curtain drawn. And still, I feel him, watching. The dreams haven't stopped. Now he speaks in them, not with words, with motions. He mimes things I don't understand. Tearing, screaming, breaking, and always, always that smile. I didn't sleep the night after I saw him in the mirror. The house was completely dark, but I sat on the couch with every light turned on. Lamps, ceiling bulbs, even a flashlight app from my backup phone. The silence in the room felt louder than any scream I could let out. Every creak, every groan of the old wooden floor sounded like footsteps. Closer and closer. At some point, I must have drifted off, because I awoke with start to the sound of tapping, not from the windows, from inside the walls. Tap, tap, tap. I pressed my ear against the plaster. The sound stopped. I backed away slowly. It started again, this time behind the bookcase. I stood, unmoving, trying not to breathe. The sound began to move, traveling from the wall to the floorboards beneath me. Then silence. I didn't move, not even an inch. I just listened. And then thump, from beneath the floor, like something had dropped hard just under the living room. I didn't even know if the house had a crawl space, but that's where it came from. Something underneath me. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys and stepped outside, into the cold morning air. I wasn't going to wait for him to come out from under my floor. I needed out, away, even if just for a few hours. Belgrade was a small town. I knew no one, but I remembered a local library near the edge of the square. It opened early. I walked there, wrapped in a hoodie, every shadow on the street sending waves of dread down my spine. As I passed the post office, I slowed. The Mime was not there. His usual spot, empty, the hat, the coins gone. I quickened my steps. The library was quiet, a converted Victorian house with tall ceilings and musty air. The librarian, a thin woman in her 50s with thick glasses, gave me a polite nod but didn't say much. I wandered through the stacks until I found the local history section. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I needed to know if this thing, the Mime, was part of something older. That's when I found it. A faded book with a cracked leather spine, The Lost Acts of Belgrave. It documented entertainment and performers throughout the town's history. Traveling circuses, puppet troupes, old vaudeville-style acts. A photograph slipped from the middle pages as I opened it. It was black and white, grainy. A group of performers posed in front of a tent. Acrobats, musicians, a clown, and him. Same striped shirt. Same painted face. Same tear under the eye. Except the photo was dated in 1928. I stared at it for several minutes. Could it be a relative? A tradition passed down? No. The features were identical. That same knowing smile. Below the photo was a short paragraph. The Belgrave Carnival, 1928. Closed after the silent tragedy. No bodies recovered. Tent fire reported as unexplained. Survivors refused to speak. My heart sank. I read everything I could find about the tragedy, which wasn't much. The event had been buried over time, dismissed as rumor, but one line repeated in a few clippings. It began with the mime. I took photos of the book pages and hurried back home, needing to double-check something. My old photos, the camera ones from the square, I hadn't deleted them. I flipped through them. Still empty. But then, something caught my eye in the third one. A smudge, barely noticeable, in the corner of the frame. I zoomed in. A hand, gloved, raised in a wave. The rest of the figure? Missing. My skin crawled. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to pack a bag and drive, until I couldn't see Belgrave in my rear view. But when I turned from the door, something else was waiting. On my coffee table sat a white envelope. I hadn't seen it when I left. It was addressed to me. No stamp. No handwriting. Just my name printed in block letters. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. I opened it. Do not look behind you. My blood turned to ice. I stood frozen, fingers clenching the paper, refusing to move my neck even slightly. Every hair on my body stood up. Then the whisper came. Not a voice, a breath. Cool air sliding past my ear. I ran. Didn't grab my phone, my keys, nothing. I just ran. Outside, daylight was beginning to fade. But I didn't care. I headed for the only place I thought might have answers. The cemetery. Don't ask me why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was because the mime felt like death itself, a performance that belonged 6 feet under. Belgrave Cemetery was old. Stones tilted, worn with time. Some names unreadable. I wandered rows until I reached the back, where the oldest graves lay forgotten under vines and decay. That's when I saw it. A grave with no name. Just a single symbol carved into the stone. A mask, theatrical, smiling, like a mime's. Something moved behind the headstone. I stepped back, breath caught in my throat. A shadow slipped around the edge, just out of sight. I turned to run, and he was there, standing 5 feet from me. Still, expression locked in that terrible smile. But his eyes were wide now, almost eager. He lifted a hand slowly, deliberately, mime knocking. Once, twice, 3 times. Then raised his other hand, and mime turning a knob, opening a door, and stepped forward. I blinked. He was gone, but the air around me had changed. It felt thinner. Wrong. I ran from the cemetery as fast as my legs would carry me. When I reached my house, the door was ajar. I didn't leave it that way. Inside, everything was dark again. The lights I'd left on out. The flashlight, dead. I fumbled for a candle from the kitchen drawer, lit it with shaking fingers. The walls were covered, every inch. Smeared black paint or ink. Dozens of handprints. Gloved, overlapping, climbing toward the ceiling. And written again and again between the prints. Smile, smile, smile. My voice cracked as I whispered, "No." Then came the sound I will never forget. Clapping, slow, deliberate, from upstairs. The candle flickered as I backed away. My eyes locked on the staircase. A shadow moved at the top, not walking, gliding, silently. I stumbled to the door, slammed it shut, ran to the neighbors, knocked until my hands bled. No one answered. No lights on. Every house on the block, dark. Empty, like the entire street had been abandoned. I called the police from a gas station at the edge of town. They came, checked the house, found nothing. No writing, no prints, no envelope, and definitely no mime. The officer asked if I'd been under stress, if I was on medication, if I wanted to speak to someone. I told him I had photos, proof, but when I opened a camera folder, every photo was corrupted. Every file name now read, smile.jpg. They left me with a warning not to waste police time. I didn't go home. I got in my car and drove for hours. Didn't stop until I reached a cheap motel off the interstate. I tried to sleep, didn't dream, but I woke up to silence again. And on the motel mirror, written in the condensation, was one word, encore. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up gasping. The air in the room was cold, unnaturally cold. I looked around. My bedroom door was wide open. I always close it at night. My lamp was on, but dim, flickering like it was struggling to stay alive. Then I noticed it. The mask. The cracked porcelain mime mask Margot had given me. It was no longer on my nightstand. It was hanging on the wall, right above my bed. My heart skipped. I backed away from it slowly, not taking my eyes off it. Every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong, that it hadn't just fallen or moved. Someone or something had put it there. The moment I touched it to pull it down, I felt a chill shoot through my arm, like ice water under my skin. I dropped it, and it hit the floor with a sharp crack. A second crack. The first had been in Margot's attic. Now a new fracture split across the mask's cheek, like it was smiling wider. I picked it up carefully and locked it in my closet. Then I noticed the writing on my mirror. For words, scrawled in something that looked like black grease paint. Are you watching yet? I staggered back, heart racing. I grabbed a towel and wiped the message off, breathing hard. I didn't know what to do. I called Margot again. No answer. Then I called her office at the university. They told me she hadn't shown up in 2 days. I drove there. Her office was locked, but the receptionist gave me access when I explained I was helping with her research. Inside, everything was as she left it, but her desk was a mess. Papers everywhere, notes scrawled in a kind of frantic, barely legible script. Some pages had drawings, sketches of a man in a black suit and white gloves, always performing. One image was repeated over and over, a mime pulling a rope and something invisible dragging behind him. The more I looked at her notes, the more I saw a pattern. She believed the mime wasn't a legend. She thought he was a ritual, a character that needed to be remembered, reperformed, to exist, to live. Her last written line chilled me. He's not trapped in stories. He is the story. I left the university with a folder full of her notes. On the way home, I saw something that made my stomach twist. A street performer, in a white mask, doing mime. He stood still, arms folded in the box gesture, on the corner of Belgrave and King. His hat sat at his feet for coins. Only no one noticed him. People passed him by like he wasn't there. Some even walked through him. And then his head slowly turned, right toward me. I ran a red light to get away from him. Back home, I double-locked the doors and windows, stuffed the mime mask into a locked toolbox in the garage, and shoved it under piles of junk. I needed to get a grip. This was just fear messing with me, right? That night, I didn't sleep. I watched Margot's documentary again, frame by frame. I paused it just before she talked about the myth of the silent one. Something blinked. Not her. In the background, a figure in the shadows. Watching her from behind a curtain in the archive footage. She was narrating. The next frame, it was gone. I rewound, played it again. There, just for a split second, a white face with black hollow eyes, like it was sneaking into the footage, sneaking into every version of the story. Margot had been right. He wasn't a spirit. He was a narrative, a presence that lived inside the story, inside any version of it. The more people watched, remembered, or retold it, the more real he became. I heard a knock at the door. It was past midnight. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. No one was there. Just a box. A VHS tape. No label. I didn't even have a player. But I remembered Margot kept one at her place. So like an idiot, I got in the car and drove back to her house. It was darker than before. The porch light was shattered. The front door was slightly open. I called out for her. No answer. I stepped inside. Everything was covered in dust, like no one had lived there in weeks. But I'd just seen her 2 days ago. Hadn't I? I went into her living room. The TV was on, static hissing softly. The VHS player sat underneath it, blinking red. I slid in the tape. At first, there was just black. Then a theater stage. Dim lighting. A man standing center stage, head bowed, arms at his side. The mime. Slowly, he looked up at the camera. His face cracked into a grin. And then, he started mimicking me. Everything I did, every breath, every blink, he mirrored it. He wasn't on screen anymore. He was with me. Behind me, I spun around. Nothing. I ran from the house and didn't stop until I reached my car. When I got home, the toolbox was open. The mask sat on my bed, but it wasn't cracked anymore. It was whole, and it was smiling. That night, I heard footsteps in the attic. Soft, deliberate steps. I went up, flashlight trembling in my grip. The attic was empty until I turned toward the mirror. It was back, not just a regular mirror. The mirror, the one from Margot's attic. And written on it, in the same black grease paint, Act 1 complete. I stared into my reflection, but it didn't move. It just stood there, watching me. And behind it, the mime. I didn't leave my room for hours. I sat with my back against the door, holding the flashlight like a weapon, even though I knew it was useless. Outside the door, the house was silent. No footsteps, no creaking floorboards, no sound at all. But that silence felt wrong, like it was watching me, like it had weight. I didn't sleep. I didn't even blink much. Every time I did, I swore I saw something shift. The air was heavy, and no matter how tightly I shut my eyes, I felt like the mime was just beyond my peripheral vision, waiting for Q to perform again. In the morning, I forced myself up. I needed help. Real help. So I went to the only person I thought might believe me. Dr. Alina Graves, a professor of folklore and performance studies who had worked with Margot once, years ago. She had a reputation for researching narrative contagion, stories that infected minds. Her office smelled of old paper and incense. She watched me silently as I told her everything, from a mask to the VHS tape. When I finished, she didn't say I was crazy. She didn't even look surprised. I was afraid this would happen, she said quietly, opening a cabinet behind her desk. She pulled out a worn leather folder. Inside were dozens of photos, sketches, handwritten notes, all of the same figure. The mime. Some of them dated back to the 1800s. One sketch showed him on a crumbling stage, surrounded by what looked like people frozen in place, eyes wide with terror. He's been called many names, she said. Le Silencieux, the Pale Man, the Curtain Walker. But the rules are always the same. You see him once, really see him, and he becomes aware of you, tell his story, and he steps closer, perform it, and you bring him to life. I didn't perform anything, I said, my voice shaking. She held up a photo of the mask I had, the same crack in the cheek. You accepted the prop. You let him in. I asked how to stop it. She hesitated. You can't, she said. Not completely, but you can delay him, starve him. Don't tell his story. Don't watch. Don't remember. It was already too late for that. I left Dr. Graves' office feeling hollow. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A message from an unknown number. You're already the lead. No one was around me. No cars in the lot. And yet I felt eyes. So many eyes. When I got home, all the mirrors in my house were covered. Every single one draped in white cloth. I hadn't done that. I never owned white cloths like those. But each one had something drawn on it. A symbol, like a circle with a tear at the bottom. Almost like a face. A mime's face. I uncovered one of the mirrors and stared. At first, I saw myself. Pale, exhausted. Then the reflection shifted. The room behind me grew darker in the glass. though it hadn't changed in real life. And then he appeared, standing right behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there. I smashed a mirror, then another, and another. I wanted them gone, every reflective surface. I even unplugged the TV and turned all my phone screens to black. But it didn't help. At 3 a.m., the lights began to flicker. My phone turned on by itself. Static filled the screen before resolving into an image. The mime bowing on a stage. And then he looked up and said a single word, "Encore." I screamed and dropped the phone. It rang. The same unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang again and again until finally I picked up, too terrified not to. There was no voice, just breathing, then slow, deliberate applause. That night, I dreamed the stage again. I stood behind the curtain. I could hear the audience, a soundless anticipation, like they were holding their breath. The curtain lifted. The mime stood across from me, perfectly still. Then he mimed a noose, and he pointed it at me. I woke up screaming. My closet door was open again, the mask back on the shelf. No matter how far I locked it away, it returned, always a little less damaged, always a little more alive. Desperate, I tried to burn it. The fire didn't catch. The mask wouldn't even heat up. I called Dr. Graves again. No answer. I drove to her office. The door was ajar. Inside, everything was destroyed. Her books torn, shelves broken, papers scattered like there had been a storm. On her chalkboard, a phrase written over and over, dozens of times in shaky, frantic writing. He mimes to live. No sign of her. Just a single glove on the floor. White, like his. I didn't sleep again for 2 nights. The lights began flickering randomly. Objects in my house shifted places. Doors opened on their own. The sound of quiet tapping echoed from inside the walls. I started seeing him in reflections I couldn't destroy, in puddles, in windows, in my own eyes. The mime wasn't just haunting me. He was rehearsing. Every movement more fluid. Every appearance more vivid. He wasn't just showing up. He was learning me, becoming me. That morning, I found a video uploaded to my YouTube account. I hadn't uploaded anything. The title, The Mime, a Performance in 10 Acts. It had 1 view, me. The thumbnail was a still image of me sleeping, taken from inside my room. I deleted it, reported it, changed my passwords. It was uploaded again an hour later, this time with 2 views. I unplugged my router, turned off my phone, shut down every electronic in the house. But the video wouldn't go away. I started hearing applause in my dreams, louder each time, and whispers repeating the same phrase. Your performance is beautiful. Tonight, I walked into my living room and froze. A stage had appeared, right in the center. A small makeshift platform with velvet curtains and a single spotlight pointed at the middle. I never built it. I never brought it in. But it was there. And in the center of it, the mask, now whole, polished, waiting. I didn't touch the stage. I didn't even go near it. I backed away slowly, half expecting it to vanish like some hallucination. But it didn't. It remained in my living room for the entire night, silent, patient, and real. By morning, the curtains had closed on their own. I left the house. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to clear my head. I needed to be somewhere the mime couldn't follow. Somewhere public, with people, with noise. I ended up at a crowded cafe downtown, surrounded by chatter and clinking cups. I kept checking every reflection, windows, spoons, phones, half expecting him to show up. But he didn't. For a moment, I thought I'd outrun it, until I heard laughter. Soft, controlled, theatrical. It came from a child, sitting at a nearby table. She was watching something just past my shoulder. Her mouth curled into a smile. "Mr. Funny Face," she said, pointing. I turned. There was nothing there. Her mother scolded her for being rude and ushered her out. But I was already trembling. The mime didn't care about distance. He wasn't tied to my house. He was tied to me. I went back to Dr. Graves' notes that I'd taken from her office. There were journal entries from others who'd encountered the mime, actors, performers. Even a clown from 1940s Paris who described a silent man in white mimicking him backstage. The same ending for all of them, descend into madness, disappearance, or death. One entry caught my eye. A woman named Helena Ward, a stage actress who vanished in 1962 after a final performance. Her diary ended with one final note. The mime takes the stage when the audience is ready, but the audience is always inside you. I tried everything. Rituals, sage, holy water. I even saw a priest who didn't laugh but did seem terrified when I showed him a mask. He refused to touch it, told me to seal the door, and left without saying another word. But the mime was past doors. That night, I caught him on video. I had set up a hidden camera in my bedroom while I slept. When I played it back in the morning, I saw him standing over me, not moving, not breathing, just watching, for 7 hours. He never blinked. He never shifted. And at the end of the video, just before dawn, he bowed and vanished. I started losing time. I'd wake up standing in different rooms. I'd find smudges of white paint on my hands, on the walls, even on my face. Once, I woke up wearing the mask, and I don't remember putting it on. I spoke to a neurologist, thinking maybe I had a brain tumor, a sleep disorder, anything to explain it. The scans came back clean. "You're perfectly healthy," she said. But her reflection in the office window had something standing behind her. I don't remember screaming. Eventually, the stage in my house began changing. The curtains grew longer, the spotlight grew brighter, and props started appearing. Ropes, scarves, fake flowers, a toy box. Then came the sound. Soft piano music, playing on its own. A haunting tune that stopped every time I left the room and resumed the second I returned. It was always the same song. I looked it up. Don Silencieus. A forgotten composition from a century ago, written by a composer who disappeared after its premiere. His final show was performed by a solo mime. No one remembered his name. I don't know what's happening to my face. Some mornings it feels stiff, like it's being molded. I've caught glimpses of myself in the mirror with white streaks across my cheeks, but when I touch them, they're gone. I don't wear makeup. I don't own face paint, but it's as if something is painting me. I've stopped leaving the house. The mime doesn't like it when I do. Every time I go out, I see signs, posters on telephone poles that read, "The show must go on." Flyers for a one-man show. No performer name. Just a time. 3 a.m. Always 3 a.m. I've stopped trying to sleep. I can't close my eyes anymore without hearing the applause, without dreaming of the red curtains. The audience isn't real, I know that, but they're watching me, and they never blink. Last night, I found myself standing on the stage. I don't remember getting there. The spotlight was on, the curtains parted, and I heard the music start. I bowed. Then the mime stepped out from the shadows, only now he looked different, less like a separate figure and more like a mirror. His movements echoed mine when I raised my hand. So did he. When I stepped forward, he mirrored every motion. And when I screamed, he didn't. He smiled. Then, slowly, he reached up and began peeling off his mask. Underneath, it was me, not a version of me, not a look-alike. It was me, but my eyes were empty, mouth sewn shut. And when I tried to run, I couldn't. My body moved like his, slow, precise, like I was part of the act, like I was being directed, controlled. I woke up with rope burns on my wrist. There's no rope in my house. Today, the stage changed again. Now there's a chair, and a single sign hanging above it. Final rehearsal tonight. I think I know what that means. I'm not supposed to watch the mime anymore. I'm supposed to be him. The house no longer feels like mine. It's shrinking, warping. The walls bend slightly when I'm not looking, and the ceiling seems lower every night. The air has a weight now, like I'm living beneath a theater stage instead of above ground. Everything creaks, even when I don't move. The stage in the living room is no longer symbolic. It has become the center of my existence. The rest of the house is dimmed around it, like the stage lights are the only thing that matter. The moment I step into the room, the spotlight flicks on by itself, and it follows me, I tried to destroy it last night. Took an axe and swung it straight into the wooden platform. The sound it made wasn't wood. It was more like flesh, something soft and hollow underneath, like I was splitting open skin. The axe got stuck. I couldn't pull it free. And when I looked down, the gash in the stage started to close, like it was healing. I backed away in horror, hands trembling, heart pounding, and that's when the laughter started again. Soft, slow, the kind of laugh that builds from the corners of theater just before the real act begins. He was there again, the mime, sitting cross-legged at the edge of the stage, back to me, slowly painting his face in the mirror I don't own. Stroke after stroke. I screamed at him to stop, to leave me alone, to tell me what he wanted, but he never spoke. He never even turned around. I blacked out again. When I woke up, I was dressed in a white performance shirt and black suspenders. My face was bare, but my fingers were covered in dry white powder. There were smears on my bed sheets, on the floor, even on my pillow. I checked the mirror. My lips were painted black, and I don't remember doing it. The flyers have multiplied. They now appear inside my house, on my fridge, my bathroom mirror, folded inside my clothes, each one with a different date, time, and venue. But the venue is always the same, the stage of the self. I tried burning them. They came back. I threw them into the sewer. They floated up the toilet. I buried them in the woods. The wind dropped them on my car windshield the next morning. I haven't seen the mime clearly in days. He keeps to the shadows now, barely visible in corners, under beds, behind doors left slightly ajar. Sometimes I hear him weeping. Other times I hear clapping, slow, sarcastic, like a disappointed director watching a failed audition. But the worst is when I hear silence. The kind of silence that stretches so long it becomes noise. Deafening, oppressive, inescapable. That's when I know he's watching, preparing, training me. I found more notes in the back of Dr. Graves' journal, pages she must have ripped out and stuffed behind a false drawer. One read, "The mime does not kill. He performs. You become the act. And when the curtain falls, the mask stays on." Another said, "His victims are not chosen. They're cast. I think I'm in the final act. My skin feels different. Tight, like I'm being molded from the inside. Sometimes I move without thinking, my hands miming walls I don't see. I'll be brushing my teeth and suddenly find myself trapped in an invisible box, my shoulders tight against air. I've stopped fighting it. Maybe that's the worst part. Today, the stage gained a new feature, an audience, not people. Mannequins, dozens of them, arranged in theater rows across what used to be my living room floor, all wearing smiling masks, all clapping silently. And when I tried to tear one apart, it bled, dark. Sticky ink poured from the neck stump. Their hands kept clapping. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually the spotlight found me again, warmer than before, like it approved. I felt my mouth twitch into a smile. Not my own, not natural, forced, like strings were pulling at my cheeks from beneath the skin. I can barely remember my own voice. It's been days since I spoke. Weeks, maybe. I try sometimes just to prove I can, but nothing comes out. My vocal cords feel rusted. The only sounds I can make are breathy gasps and occasional grunts. And laughter, that hollow, bitter laughter that doesn't belong to me. I hear music now even when it's not playing. Don Silencius follows me into every room, bleeding from the walls, echoing from the pipes. It's inside my head. The rhythm guides my steps. I've caught myself dancing when I thought I was walking, bowing when I meant to stretch, stretching when I meant to scream. There are no windows anymore. Or maybe I just stopped seeing them. The only light that matters is the spotlight. The only room that matters is the stage. I think I saw Dr. Graves again, in a dream, or maybe it was real. She stood behind the curtain, her eyes black, her hands trembling, whispering something over and over. Don't take the final bow. She looked more like a puppet than a person. Her movements were jerky. Her mouth moved without sound. I tried to reach her, but the curtain closed between us, and the show began. This time, I wasn't watching. I was the one performing, juggling invisible knives, walking a fake tightrope, pulling imaginary flowers from my sleeve, all while the mannequins stared and clapped and bled from their hands. When I tried to stop, my body didn't listen. I kept moving. I kept smiling. And the mime watched from the wings, arms crossed, head tilted, eyes burning with hunger. He doesn't want to kill me. He wants to become me. And he's almost there. I found a mask on my pillow tonight. Not the old one. A new one, molded perfectly to my face. Inside it, written in fading black ink, were the words, "Bravo." I don't remember waking up. 1 minute. I was standing in the kitchen, staring at a blank wall. The next, I was in full mime costume, white gloves, painted face, striped shirt, standing center stage as if I'd been summoned there mid-performance, arms posed in an invisible tug-of-war. And the mannequins were cheering. I tried to scream, but only silence answered. My mouth moved, but nothing came out, not even breath, just a flutter of distant music. Don Silence shoes, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. I'm losing days now, maybe weeks. Time folds over itself here. I blink and it's morning. Blink again and night has fallen. My clocks are all stuck at 11:59. I wind them, replace the batteries. They never move. The sun no longer rises through the curtains. There's no outside anymore, only stage light and shadow. I don't eat. I don't sleep. I perform. Each time the spotlight finds me, I feel less like myself. My body moves with eerie grace, like I've trained in pantomime my whole life. But my thoughts don't match my actions. I scream silently as my arms mime climbing an invisible ladder. I beg for it to stop, but my legs tiptoe as if walking a tightrope. I'm no longer in control. Today, I found something new. Behind the velvet curtain, where the hallway used to be, a door had appeared. Black wood, brass handle, a plaque on it read, "Final rehearsal." I didn't open it. Not yet, but I felt the weight of it, like gravity leaned in its direction. I touched the handle and heard whispers in my mind, words I didn't recognize. French, maybe, or just madness. I backed away, heart racing. The mannequins suddenly turned their heads in unison to watch me retreat. Yes, they move now. They follow me with their faceless stares. Sometimes they're closer than they were. Sometimes I hear their plastic feet dragging across the floor behind me. And sometimes one is missing from the crowd. That's what happened this morning. I was brushing the remnants of white paint from my face in the bathroom sink, my hands trembling, eyes bloodshot, when I saw something behind me in the mirror. A mannequin, standing just outside the bathroom door. Still, silent, watching. I spun around. Nothing. It was back in the audience when I checked. Front row, arms crossed, head tilted. I think they're learning, becoming more than props. They've started clapping out of rhythm, like testing their independence. They lean forward when I speak, even if I'm only whispering to myself. I don't know how, but they're listening. They remember. I tried to destroy one again. Took a chair and smashed it over the mannequin in the aisle. Its head cracked open like porcelain. But instead of foam or stuffing inside, there were human teeth, a full set, and blood. Fresh. The other mannequins stood up, all of them, and they clapped. It wasn't applause. It was warning. So I ran, upstairs to the attic, the only place they haven't followed. Not yet. There, I found the trunk again. The one I thought I burned. It was back. Same faded sticker, Marceau's traveling spectacle. This time it was unlocked. Inside there were costumes. Dozens. All mime outfits, different sizes, stained with age. And masks. Hundreds of them, each molded to a different face. Some with mouths wide in laughter. Others twisted in silent screams. Beneath it all, photographs. Old, sepia-toned, crinkled edges. Each one showed a different performer, all standing beside the same man in white face paint. The mime, his expression never changed, but his eyes followed me in every photo. And I recognized one of the faces, Dr. Graves. She wasn't a therapist. Not originally. She was one of them. Another cast member. Another puppet. One photo, tucked in the back, had writing on it. The show must go on, even if the actors don't survive. I don't think I was chosen randomly. I think I was next in line. Back downstairs, the stage had changed again. Now, there were ropes dangling from the ceiling. Thick, coarse ropes with loops at the end. Puppet strings. And beneath them, footprints. My size. I didn't walk there, but my body must have. I collapsed to the floor, just sobbing, shaking. I held my face in my hands, trying to claw the white makeup off. It wouldn't come off. It was under my skin now, like it had seeped in through my pores and taken root. I stayed there for hours, maybe longer. Then the curtain opened, and the mime stood there, no longer a shadow, no longer hiding. He walked toward me with slow, deliberate steps, his movements graceful, too smooth, like film played in slow motion. He extended a gloved hand to me, and I took it, not because I wanted to, because I couldn't stop myself. He led me to the center of the stage, spun me once like a dance partner, and placed a mask in my hands. It was blank, but warm. He pressed it to my face, and I saw everything, not with my eyes, but with my mind. A flash of every performance, every victim, every soul absorbed into this act. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Their memories collided in my brain. Screams, applause, blood, silence. A vortex of pain and performance. I dropped the mask. He vanished. And when I looked at the mannequins, they bowed to me as if I'd passed some test, as if I was next. I crawled away from the stage. My legs barely worked. My spine throbbed. My mouth was frozen into a smile that wouldn't fade. And when I looked at myself in the mirror, I wasn't there, just a mask, floating, smiling. I think the final rehearsal is soon. I hear them whispering it from the walls. The mannequins are rearranging themselves into something closer, something more human. They've started mimicking my movements when I'm not on stage. I caught one brushing its face with white powder, another one miming tears. The door in the hallway still waits. Final rehearsal. And this time, I think I'm ready to open it. The hospital was a skeleton of its former self. Vines crept through shattered windows, and gurneys lay overturned in hallways littered with broken glass and yellowed patient files. The air reeked of mildew and something foul beneath it, like rotting wood and flesh. I didn't know what I expected to find here, but something had drawn me. Some pull I couldn't shake. My flashlight flickered as I made my way deeper inside, past the rusted reception desk, and up the stairwell that groaned with every step. The silence was worse than any scream. It was too still, like everything in the building was holding its breath. Room 209. That's where she said it began. My hand trembled as I turned the doorknob. The door creaked open to reveal a small room, walls yellowed, bed stripped, and graffiti scrawled across the ceiling. But on the wall, in crimson paint, were the words, "The show never ends." And then I heard it. Music. Faint, warped carnival music, like a broken music box struggling to play a tune long forgotten. It came from the hallway. I stepped out and followed it, heart hammering. The tune grew louder, more distorted. The corridor seemed to stretch, twist, until it no longer resembled a hospital. The walls morphed into velvet drapes. The lights dimmed to flickering spotlights. And at the end of the hall stood a stage. A spotlight beamed down, and from the shadows emerged a mime. But this time, he wasn't miming a story. He was performing mine. He mimicked my movements, the fear in my eyes, the desperation in my breath. He showed me searching, fleeing, screaming without sound. Then he mimed my death. I took a step back. The floor beneath me vanished. I fell through darkness, crashing into a room lined with mirrors. My reflection stared back, dozens of them, but they didn't move when I did. They moved on their own. Each version of me twisted in agony, covering their mouths, their throats slit, blood pouring in silence. Then the reflections began to crack, one by one, until only a single mirror remained, one that showed the mime wearing my face. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. But a new sound replaced the music. Breathing. Heavy, ragged, just behind me. I ran. I crashed through door after door until I burst into an auditorium filled with mannequins. Their glass eyes watched as I stumbled down the aisle toward the exit, but the door was gone. In its place stood a mural, painted in thick red strokes. Applause or death. I turned around. On stage stood the mime, bowing. The mannequins clapped. I didn't. They turned on me. I screamed, but no sound came. They descended, reaching, clawing. Then, darkness. I woke up on a hospital bed, restrained. A nurse hovered over me. "You're lucky to be alive," she said. "You were found wandering Route 17, babbling about a mime." I couldn't speak. My throat was raw. "You've been through trauma," she said gently. "But you're safe now." Safe? I turned to the window. Outside in the parking lot, the mime stood beneath a flickering lamppost, and he bowed. They wouldn't let me leave. The hospital said I was under observation, that I had experienced a psychotic break, that the mime was a hallucination brought on by stress and trauma. But I knew better. Every time the lights flickered, every time the shadows lengthened in the corner of my room, I felt him, watching, waiting. The mime was real. They moved me to a different room after I tried to break a window with my 4-pole. They called it a quiet space. White walls, padded corners. No mirrors. No windows. Only a single security camera mounted in the corner, and a speaker that buzzed occasionally with the voices of doctors trying to talk me down. But one night, the buzzing changed. It wasn't a voice anymore. It was music. Carnival music. I slammed my fist against the door, begging them to shut it off, but no one answered. The light above me began to flicker in time with the melody. I looked up at the camera, expecting someone to be watching, but the red recording light was off. That's when I saw him. On the screen in the corner of the room, a flat black monitor I had assumed was off. The mime stood in the center of my cell, but he wasn't in the room. Not yet. Then the screen went black, and I wasn't alone. I turned slowly, dread crawling up my spine. He stood in the far corner, still as a statue, one hand raised as if tipping an invisible hat. His smile had grown. Paint cracked along the edges of his face, revealing something dark beneath. Not skin, not flesh, something older, rotten. He raised his hand, index finger to lips. Silence. Always silence. He moved closer. I backed away until my legs hit the bed. I tried to scream, but my voice died in my throat. The mime leaned forward, his painted eyes inches from mine. Then he mimed something I didn't recognize. A gesture, a sequence, like he was unlocking something. My head exploded in pain. Memories surged. Flashes of the theater, the mannequins, the audience of corpses clapping with broken hands. Then it stopped. He was gone, and I was lying on the floor, covered in sweat, alone once more. Except something was different. There was a mirror on the wall. It hadn't been there before. I approached it slowly. My reflection was distorted. I looked older, thinner. My lips were sewn shut. I turned to run, but the door opened on its own. Outside was not the hospital. It was the theater. The velvet curtains, the rotted seats, the broken chandeliers. The mime had brought me back. I walked down the aisle, past rows of mannequins. But they were moving now, heads twitching to follow me, hands clapping ever so slowly. The stage was lit. A set had been prepared. A bed, a nightstand, a mirror, my hospital room. He wanted me to perform, to reenact my madness. I stepped onto the stage, and the mannequins applauded louder. I lay on the bed. The mime emerged from the curtain, bowing deeply before taking his place at my side. He mimed the doctors, the restraints, the injection, the silence, and I felt it, the needle, but no one touched me. I screamed again, still no sound. The mannequins stood. The walls of the stage fell away. Behind them, a second audience waited. The dead, faces I recognized, friends, strangers, people from the news, all victims of the mime, all trapped, applauding endlessly. I collapsed to my knees. The mime bowed once more, then pointed at me. The audience joined in. Dozens of fingers, pointing, accusing. Then he raised his hands, palms out, and the air rippled like water. He stepped into it and vanished. I followed, because there was no other choice. I emerged in a dressing room. Mine, a cracked mirror, a dusty costume, and on the chair, white gloves, and a mask. Waiting for me, I understood. I had been chosen, not just to perform, but to replace. The mime wasn't a man. He was a role, a curse, a mantle passed from one to the next. And now it was mine. I didn't put on the gloves. Not right away. I stared at them, my reflection in the cracked mirror staring back, fractured and multiplied into twisted versions of myself. Each one seemed to wear the gloves already. Each one seemed to nod. I turned away. I had to fight this. But the door behind me was gone. The dressing room walls began to tremble, soft groans leaking through the floorboards. Lights above me blinked like a heartbeat. Faster, louder. The music began again, the same carnival melody. Slower now, dragging, as if it too were tired of repeating this nightmare. There was a knock at the door that no longer existed. 3 knocks, then silence, then laughter. Soft, childlike, wrong. I closed my eyes. This isn't real. But it was, because when I opened them, I wasn't in the dressing room anymore. I was outside, standing in the middle of a crowd. A real crowd. Faces, all smiling, all laughing. Cameras pointed at me. Applause thundered in my ears. But I wasn't dressed as myself anymore. I was wearing the white face, the gloves, the black and white striped shirt, the suspenders, the mime, a massive screen above the stage replayed footage I never remembered shooting. Me performing, miming tragedies that made the audience roar with delight. A child lost in a crowd, a mother burying her son, a man hanging from an invisible rope. They loved it. They fed on it. And I performed because something deeper than fear had taken hold. Obedience. Behind the crowd stood the mannequins, row upon row, silent sentinels with twisted grins. And behind them, the other mimes. Not one, not two, hundreds, each one wearing a mask, each one staring at me with black eyes that pulsed like wounds. And then they bowed. In unison, the audience screamed in joy. I stood frozen. Something within me cracked. I felt myself step forward. My hand rose on its own, and I began to mime. I mimed joy, sadness, terror, pain, death. The audience wept and clapped and laughed. And with each motion, I felt something leak out of me, memories, pieces of myself, moments I cherished. My mother's voice, my dog's bark, the way sunlight felt through bedroom curtains. All gone, replaced with silence. I kept performing. The stage grew brighter. The audience dimmed, until there was no crowd left. Only darkness. I stood alone. The stage dissolved beneath me. I was back in my apartment. Morning sunlight slanted across the hardwood floor. I was holding a white glove in one hand. My phone buzzed on the table. A missed call. Unknown number. A voicemail. I played it. A child's voice whispered, "Thank you for the show." Click. I dropped the phone. The TV turned on by itself. Static. Then footage of me performing. But not in any theater I knew. Not in any place that existed. Just a black void. An endless crowd. Watching. Applauding. And the camera zoomed in. To my face. Only it wasn't my face anymore. It was a mime. Grinning. I ran to the mirror. I was myself again. Or so I thought. Until I tried to speak. Nothing came out. Not even a whisper. My mouth opened and closed. No sound. And on my cheek, white paint. I scrubbed at it. It wouldn't come off. I screamed in silence. The apartment door creaked. I turned. In the hallway, a neighbor stood watching me, face pale, eyes wide. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, unable to say a word. She frowned. "Why are you in costume?" I stepped back, slowly closing the door. My reflection in the hallway mirror caught my one last time. The mime stared back and bowed